Hey guys, well it's been 2 months, and we're back with another podcast. And hello, so yeah, we're back after 2 months. We're back with another podcast, episode 46 of the FilmBrony Podcast. Welcome everyone, and as always, I'm not here alone. I got a guest with me who started this whole podcast. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, you pretty much know who I am. So I'm the FilmBrony. I'm the guy who pretty much started this whole thing, and you get the gist.
Yeah. Now, now it's just like we I've been busy for the last two months, which is why you guys haven't seen a podcast since like May. Like originally, I was planning to get this podcast out for June, but unfortunately, a lot of things came down. Like not only did I get like new braces, as you see right here,
Mm.
yeah, but my grandmother had passed away last month, so the sad thing is, it was only a matter of time before she was going to pass. So it's been difficult. It's been difficult for me and my family. And plus, I've been going around back and forth with working and like moving to the new house that it's been difficult trying to like start this podcast and also like doing the movies as well. So like I meant watching movies as well, but but on a positive side, you guys are getting not one but two podcasts. You guys don't have to wait like either a month or so for the next podcast because we're going to be doing another one in a couple weeks. So stay
Yeah,
tuned for that.
yeah. We figured that since it's been a while since the last podcast. We figured that from now on we're gonna try to give you a podcast semi-weekly, as in once every 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah. So let's just and welcome everyone if you're watching this. But anyway, let's get to our usual thing we always do, starting with the Blu-ray showcase.
All right. First up is the movie that inspired the Society of the Snow last year, Alive.
It's a good film.
Alpha, which I hear good things about. Beginners.
That's a great film. Christopher Plummer was fantastic in that film.
Well, this year we found out what Dan Schneider's worst contributions to Nickelodeon are. Now let's talk about his best contribution to Hollywood, Big Fat Liar. Bruce Almighty.
I really like that movie.
I have not one but two Bruce Lee double features.
Nice.
Bugsy.
Great film.
Butch Cassidy, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and The Magnificent Seven. Casanova. Now, I know people can't stand this movie, but for me, it's just so bad, it's hilarious. It's like the room of the late 2010s. Anyways, Cats.
Oh,
Clue.
nice.
The Color Purple, the reboot.
I also have that film too.
This Colossal Monster collection, Jack the Giant Slayer, Cloverfield, King Kong the original, and 10,000 BC. Yeah, 3 out of 4 ain't bad. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Nice.
The Creator.
It's a very good film.
Cyrano. Daddy Longlegs. This D-Day Remembered movie collection. Dirty Dancing.
That's a very good film.
One of the more overlooked Stephen King adaptations, Dolores Claiborne.
A great film.
Drugstore Cowboy.
A great film and a brilliant directorial debut for Gus Van Sant.
Hands down the best movie of the year so far, Denisovich's Doom Part 2.
I also have it too. It's also my favorite movie of the year so far too.
Now this one owes a little explanation. The Exorcist Anthology. Now the reason why I got this is because I wanted to get Dominion prequel to The Exorcist for a long time, but the problem is it's pretty rare and pretty expensive. So I just figured I'd bite the bullet and buy the entire series, even if it has the Heretic and Exorcist at the beginning. Universal, you better be lucky that Mike Flanagan is making the next one.
Yeah, really.
The Fisher King. Fistful of Dynamite. Flashdance. Hannibal Rising. This Harrison Ford collection. Hoodwink 2, Hood vs. Evil. Hope and Glory. House of Sand and Fog. All 5 Hunger Games films.
Nice.
The Hurricane. Hurt Locker and Apocalypse Now.
Great films.
I have 2 versions of Inherit the Wind. Inland Empire. This inspirational 4-movie collection. Interview with a Vampire.
Very good film.
Kingpin.
Kingpin is so funny.
The Lion in Winter. A movie
Nice.
we're going to be talking about in a little bit, Lisa Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
Martha Marcy May Marlene. Michael Collins.
Great film.
Midnight Express.
Another great film.
Midnight Run.
Here's an answer. How about no?
Mishima Life in 4 Chapters.
Nice.
The Naked Gun trilogy. It'll be
I'm
interesting.
Lieutenant Frank Drebin, Police Squad.
It'll be interesting to see the reboot with Liam Neeson. Hopefully, it's his best movie in a while.
I hope so too.
One-Eyed Jacks.
Nice.
Paris, Texas.
The Wim Wenders film. That's a classic.
The People vs. Larry Flint.
A great film.
Petite Maimon.
I wish I had reviewed that film sooner, but oh well.
The Phantom of the Opera, the Lon Chaney classic.
And to answer your question, my favorite Leslie Nielsen movie he was in is Airplane.
Probably mine as well. Police Story 1 and 2. Repulsion. Scanners. Schindler's List.
That is one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life.
A Star is Born, the Judy Garland version.
A great film.
A movie that 365 Days tried to be and failed, and I hear this is the way better version. Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down.
A Pedro Almodovar film that's way better.
So I've heard. Ted and Ted 2.
Nice.
Thief by Michael Mann.
A great film. That's one of my dad's favorite movies, actually.
Wag the Dog.
A great film by Barry Levinson. and one of the best political satires ever made.
Walkabout. Whatever happened to Baby Jane?
Nice.
Wild.
Great film. One of the best from 2014.
Wolf.
Another great film.
Wonka.
Very good film.
Yesterday.
Pretty underrated, in my opinion.
Zathura.
Very good film.
The Zone of Interest.
A great film.
And last but not least, Mark of Zorro from 1940.
Nice. All right. Well, I got a few Blu-rays and I got a couple of DVDs and a few Blu-rays. I want to go. Well, I already mentioned that I already have Dune Part 2. That's the best movie I've seen this year so far, of course. And then I got Inside Out.
One of the best animated movies of last year, and we're going to be talking about the sequel in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. The Big Short, one of the best films of 2015, and what I consider to be Adam McKay's best movie.
And the only good social satire he's done. Looking at you, Vysen, to look up.
Yeah, really. A Quiet Place.
That's a classic. I think John Krasinski should have won Best Director that year.
Yeah, but again, it was a stiff competition. One of my favorite movies of last year, Anatomy of a Fall.
Good movie.
What was originally my number 2 favorite animated film of last year before it was changed to number 1, The Boy and the Heron.
I'll have to get that.
Honestly, thinking about it, it really was the best animated film I saw last year because it really did move me like no other animated film did.
And to you people who say that animation is for kids, hey, that movie won the Best Animated Feature Oscar, so how do you like them apples?
Yeah, really. And plus, it's the first ever PG-13 film to win the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. So,
That's exactly.
And finally, one of my favorite movies of last year, American Fiction.
Another one I'll have to get.
And I got these 3. They're all DVDs, but I'm really happy that I got these since I'm a huge fan of the show. Bluey.
I have seasons 1 and 2. I'll probably get season 3 down the line.
I have season 1, season 2, and finally, season 3.
Good shit right there.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And originally, I was going to bring up the 3 other Blu-rays that I have right over here too, but I'm going to save that for the next podcast. So, and since we're going to be discussing these 3 movies in a little bit. And to answer your question, probably my favorite Bluey episode. If I were to have the top 3, I would say Granny's, camping, and The Sign.
To be honest, I haven't really watched enough Blu-ray to get a sense of my favorite episode, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right, guys. The Blu-ray showcase is done, and now we have a lot, and I mean a lot, of movie reviews to talk about today. So I'm gonna possibly start first with this one. With this one. Oh wait. Actually, we're gonna talk about. Actually, Søren and I are gonna talk about the. No. Wait. I'm sorry. My first one I'm gonna be talking about is the thriller film called Out of Darkness. And it takes place 45,000 years ago, where a desperate band of early humans find a new land to settle in. But as they start to realize that something monstrous is hunting them down, they must confront a horrifying danger that they never could have imagined. Now, this is one of those movies where I didn't know nothing. I didn't know that much about it until I saw the poster for it, and I really like this movie. But I do understand why a lot of people wouldn't, since it's a lot different compared to the other stuff. I will say this. The screenplay was solid, mainly in terms of its dialogue, characterization, the way they executed the theme of survival. It's very well directed. The acting was great. The musical score was fantastic. The cinematography is one of the best I've seen this year so far, especially with how they capture the landscapes. Wow. The editing was great. It's got a tense atmosphere, excellent sound design, brilliant use of practical effects, and very good costume design. Now, here are my only complaints I have with the film. The story can feel a bit contrived. The pacing is a bit of a wonky mess at times, and the third act can feel very anticlimactic. And the third act is a bit anticlimactic, but otherwise, I really liked Out of Darkness. 8 out of 10 or B+. I really enjoyed this movie.
Next, we have Bob Marley, One Love.
Oh now, my God, yeah.
Considering the talent behind such films as King Richard and Wolf of Wall Street, but also made the forgettable Joe Bell, and considering the hit-and-miss genre musician biopics recently, I was somewhat cautious with this one. But unfortunately, this was yet another mess. I will say it's well directed and well acted, especially Kingsley Ben Ader in the title role. But it ultimately doesn't give us more about Bob Marley than you can find on his Wikipedia article. And as a result, nothing really happens throughout most of it, and as a further result, it's somewhat boring. I will say the best part about this movie is seeing it take a dump at Man Web at the box office, but that doesn't make it any more worth recommending overall as it gets a seal of mediocrity.
And to answer your question, could you be loved?
Probably Three Little Birds, but then again, I haven't heard many of his songs. So
yeah, and yes, one of the best animated films ever made. It has recently turned 25. South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncle. But yeah, this movie was. Yeah, I'm with you, Søren. Bob Marley One Love was a very disappointing film, and it's a shame because it had a lot of potential to be an interesting biopic on the guy that not only revolutionized the reggae genre, but wanted to bring peace and love to the world. It had a lot of. I was really hoping that this movie would be an excellent biopic on him, but what I got was a movie was a biopic that feels half-assed and rushed. Now, the only good things I'll say about the film is that the acting is very good, especially from Kingsley, who is fantastic as Bob Marley, and Lashana Lynch was great in the film too. It has a great soundtrack, great cinematography, and the concert scenes are easily the biggest highlight of the whole film in the way that they were shot and directed. Unfortunately, this movie was a mess. Not just in terms of its story, but also its writing. What disappointed me about the writing was that it doesn't delve deeper into it doesn't delve deeper into who Bob Marley was other than he was the guy that wanted to bring peace and love. I wish the movie could have taught us more about this guy, and that's not just the fault of the writing. That's the fault of the directing as well. I was very shocked with how poorly directed it felt. Honestly, if I'm going to be honest, Søren. The editing was a choppy mess. It's sluggishly paced throughout. It's filled with cliches that you've seen in other biopic films before. And not only was the ending very rushed, but where was the love? Like, the movie is called Bob Marley, One Love, yet this movie doesn't, there's no love to this. And that's what's disappointing about this. Where was the love? Yeah, overall, this was a very disappointing biopic, and easily on my list for one of the most disappointing films of this year so far. 3 out of 10, or D plus. I really did not like this one at all. Even if you're a huge Bob Marley fan, I say skip it and watch the documentary instead. The documentary is way better. And sadly, that's not the only biopic we'll be discussing later on. Where I'll also be saying watch the documentary instead of this. So, but we'll get to that after we talk about the rest of the films, of course.
And trust me, that particular movie makes Bob Marley look like Walk the Line.
Oh, absolutely. Next film is a film that I had low expectations for, but actually came out actually liking this one, and it's called Ordinary Angels. It's based on true events that transpired during the 1994 North American cold wave. It's about a struggling hairdresser who finds a renewed sense of purpose when she meets a widowed father working hard to care for his 2 daughters. With his youngest critically ill and waiting for a liver transplant, the fierce woman single-handedly rallies an entire community to help. Yeah, I like this movie. Now, this movie really. Now, I'm not a fan of faith-based movies, as you probably guys could imagine on a couple of previous podcasts I mentioned. But this one with the faith-based stuff was actually very well handled. Like, when it came to the faith-based elements in Ordinary Angels, it did not feel preachy. As instead, they went for genuine faith rather than forced faith. And that's what I really liked about, and that's what surprised me about Ordinary Angels, was how the faith stuff felt genuine and not forced. The story felt highly engaging. The directing was good. The acting was very good, especially from Hilary Swank, who steals the entire show as Sharon. And Emily Mitchell was brilliant as Michelle. The cinematography is great. There are nice moments of humor sprinkled into the midst, and the third act is just wonderful. Now, as for issues, I did think the screenplay could have used some more work on the dialogue, since it did feel clunky at times. There are a couple pacing issues here and there. The musical score wasn't really that remarkable, since it felt kind of dull, if I'm going to be honest. There were some editing choices made in the film that did feel choppy and uneven, but honestly, that's really it. Yeah, overall, I surprisingly like this one. 7 out of 10, or a B. I liked it.
Now I get.
Well, that question will be answered later on once we get to it, Ethan. Don't worry.
Now I get to a movie called Drive Away Dolls.
Oh my God, Drive Away Dolls.
After the Coen brothers broke up as a filmmaking duo earlier this decade, it seems like Joe Coen has proven himself as a solo director with his Macbeth movie. However, the same cannot be said for Ethan, because this was such a slog. I will say the actors do their best with what they're given, especially Margaret Qualley and Geraldine V. But the efforts are for naught, because for a movie that wants to be a lesbian road trip version of The Big Lebowski, this is nothing more than a dollar store version of that film. It's got some of the most one-note jokes I've ever experienced in a movie, as most of the humor relies on dildos. it drags the hell on, even for a movie that's not even an hour and a half long. And the editing, especially the transitions, are like a monkey watched English Hulk and thought they could look this artsy too.
Oh my god! Like the editing was atrocious. Yeah. Let's have a bunch of whack-a-mole or Hanna-Barbera sound effects add in the background into the mix. Like, what the fuck was this?
Ultimately, I hope this is just a fluke for Ethan Coen as his next movie fares out better, because this was not a good directorial debut for a narrative film. I'm gonna have to give this an unfortunate seal of disapproval.
Yeah, this is the most disappointing film I've seen this year so far. Now, to be fair, most of the acting was good, especially from Margaret Qualley and Geraldine. I'm not going to pronounce her last name, but since I don't want to butcher her last name, but both of them were very good, and they had some good chemistry in the film too. And Beanie Feldstein had some funny moments in the film too. And when it came to some of the jokes in the film that made me laugh at or chuckle throughout, it's mostly on Beanie Feldstein. And the film did have a good soundtrack and great cinematography, but yeah, this movie was a mess. Lackluster story, messy directed by Ethan Coen. The screenplay is such a hot mess, not just in terms of its characterization, but in terms of its clunky dialogue and a very inconsistent tone. Like, I'm not kidding. At one point, it wants to be a comedy, then it wants to be a romantic drama. It's like which one are you? Like, which one are you trying to be? Movie, like, which one are you trying to be? And I already mentioned about the editing. Honestly, to answer your question, I have no fucking clue. And it just makes absolutely no sense to have Hanna-Barbera sound effects in an R-rated movie, unless you're making a wacky cartoon animated film that has those sound effects. But even then, but still. Hello, Jose. Welcome to the podcast. And I'm doing just fine. We're just talking about Drive-Away Dolls and how disappointing it was. The pacing was a rushed and frantic mess. 80% of the jokes are lackluster at best and juvenile at worst, especially with the dick jokes basically being a running gag throughout the film, which, good lord, especially in this one scene where the dog is like, it's like, I'm not even kidding. There's a scene where the dog is like humping the crap out of a police officer, and I'm like, what the hell am I watching? And the ending was very underwhelming at best as well. But even worse, this movie advertised that Pedro Pascal and Matt Damon are also in this movie. And they're only in one scene. Pedro Pascal is only in one scene at the beginning of the film, and Matt Damon is also like in a couple scenes towards the end of the film, and that's it. Yeah, it is a dick parade because that's what it is. Drive the fuck away. more like drive the dick. More like drive the fuck away, dick dolls. Yeah, that's more like it. Yeah, this movie was very disappointing at best. It is easily the most disappointing movie I've seen in 2024 so far. And as Søren said, I'm really hoping it's only a fluke from Ethan Coen, because otherwise I'm just begging for Joel to come back and help Ethan. Yeah, a very disappointing 3 out of 10 or D plus for this one. I really did not like this movie. Sorry, Ethan. Better luck next time. And unfortunately, oh wait, hold on, Our next movie we're going to talk about is Spaceman.
This movie was okay. This is yet another lonely spaceman film with things you've seen before in a movie like this, but they're compelling enough thanks to the chemistry between Adam Sandler and Paul Dano. The visuals aren't unique, but they're interesting enough, and the music is soothing as well. Not the best movie in this genre, but worth recommending enough. I'll give it the seal of adequacy.
It's a fine film. I do agree with Soren. The movie was fine. It's very well directed. The acting was terrific, especially from Adam Sandler, who was absolutely fantastic in this movie. And Paul Dano was brilliant as the voice of the Spider. The musical score is fantastic. The cinematography was terrific. The production design is incredible. And the visual effects are fantastic. But at the same time, the story didn't really grab me. I was a little disappointed with the story since it didn't grab me as much as I hoped it would, since it feels like something I've seen in other films before, such as like Interstellar and Ad Astra. While the screenplay does deliver solid dialogue, I wish its characterization, mainly on the side characters, could have been fleshed out and well developed. And I wish it could have explored its themes on loneliness and isolation a bit more. There were also some editing choices that the movie cuts back and forth to that did feel uneven and jarring at times. It also suffers through some pacing issues here and there, and I also really wasn't a fan of the ending. I get why they did this to try to be a little ambiguous, but the problem is that the ending left more questions than just answers. Because of how rushed it felt. Overall, Spaceman is indeed inconsistent and contrived at times with its story, but its well-acted cast from Adam Sandler and stunning visuals do actually save this movie from being either mediocre or bad. So 6 out of 10 or B minus. And finally, the last of the February movies I'm going to talk about is The Taste of Things. Now, this was a film that was chosen for the French as the French entry for the Best International Feature at this year's Oscars. And here's what it's about. The Taste of Things is set in 1889, where it depicts a romance between a cook and the gourmet she works for. And it's based on the 1924 novel called The Passionate Epicure. I really like this movie a lot. Now, the only problem I did have with the film is that it does suffer through some pacing issues here and there, but that's it. The story was highly engaging. The directing and screenplay were fantastic. The acting, especially from Juliette Binoche, was terrific. Excuse me. The cinematography was terrific. The editing was great. Excellent production values and costume design. Terrific sound design. And not only was the ending well executed, but it's good when I also wanted to try the foods shown in the film because of how exquisite they looked. Overall, The Taste of Things features brilliant performances by Juliette Binoche and it's one of the most delightful and exquisite movies I've seen this year so far. 9 out of 10 or an A minus. I really like this movie. Check it out.
Next, I have a movie called Damsel. Now, you know that movie Ready or Not from a couple of years ago? Imagine that, except with a fantasy setting. Except this one takes a bit to get going, and even then it's too slow, repetitive, and cliche for me to care. While the performances are decent, they unfortunately can't save unimpressive production values and effects. It's yet another generic Netflix genre film that I only recommend to hardcore fantasy fans, and I'll give it a seal of mediocrity.
And the next film we're going to talk about is Next film we're going to talk about is Kung Fu Panda 4.
After two movies last year which failed to reach streamers' potential, as well as a decent but flawed Netflix collaboration and a Megamind sequel which we don't talk about, this one was just okay. I will say it's just as colorful and action-packed as the first three, and the voice cast is on point, and even Awkwafina didn't annoy me as much as I thought she would. However, this movie doesn't really justify its own existence. The story isn't nearly as dramatic and compelling as the first two movies, or even the third one to some extent, and it's not helped by its abundance of animation cliches, the chameleon being hands down the weakest villain in the franchise, the past villain being either wasted or subject to continuity errors, i.e., only one of them was banished to the spirit realm, or the ending being hella rushed. Like, the story's still going even during the end credits. So while this is still an enjoyable romp in the franchise, don't go into it expecting the same quality as it's been before, so I'll give Kung Fu Panda 4 the seal of accuracy.
I really did not like this movie. I really did not like this one at all. I mean, there are, as someone who really liked the first three, as someone who loved the first two Kung Fu Panda movies and really enjoyed the third film, I was really disappointed with this one. Now, to be fair, the animation was great. Most of the voice acting was very good, including from Jack Black, who's excellent as always as Poe. The musical score was great. The fight sequences are very well done in the way they were shot, edited, and animated, and the cinematography adds a nice touch to those sequences. And it's got solid editing, and 20% of the jokes, and I did laugh at 20% of the jokes. Unfortunately, the movie was a mess. The story felt contrived and weak. The writing was a hot mess, especially with its clunky dialogue and bad characterization. And Mike Mitchell's directing was also a hot mess. And while most of the voice acting was very good, I found Awkwafina to be absolutely insufferable as the voice of Zen. And speaking of Zen, she's one of the dumbest comic relief characters I've ever seen in an animated film. To a point where I know I might get some disagreements, but I'm sorry. She's basically this decade's Jar Jar Binks.
I wouldn't really go that far because at least Awkwafina doesn't inadvertently insult the black community.
But still though, it's just she's still a poorly written character. Pacing issues? Yep, definitely a lot of it. Oh yeah, and Viola Davis as the chameleon villain, because of how weak the villain character felt, Viola Davis also felt horribly wasted. 80% of the jokes felt very flat due to how juvenile they felt. It's filled with cliches that you've seen in other animated films before. The message and theme of change felt poorly handled. A plot twist that feels so forced and something M. Night Shyamalan would come up with. And a very underwhelming and forced ending. Especially with how they brought back the Furious 5 in the mid-credits scene. Like, what the hell was that crap? So overall, Kung Fu Panda 4 is not only the worst installment of the Kung Fu Panda movies, but it's also such a contrived and underwhelming animated film where you could tell this series is running out of steam at this point. 4.5 out of 10, or C. Now, unfortunately, the next film I'm about to, you know what? I'm gonna bring. You know what? I'm going to do something I've actually never done before because I never actually done before because I decided to do 2 and 1. I decided to do 2 reviews. I decided to bring 2 movies in just one review because both of these films are horror movies, and they both shared the same problem. They both shared the same problem. They both shared the same problem. If you're wondering which films we're talking about, they are Imaginary and Terror, or Terra. Yeah, I decided to review both of those films in one, because both of these movies have the same problem. Like in Imaginary, you have a concept of an imaginary friend turning evil that could have been interesting, and in Terror, you have the story. You have a concept of like tarot cards that could have been interesting as a horror film, but again, it relies on how poorly executed it felt. And Ethan, Ethan, we're not going to discuss that due to political reasons. We're not going to discuss that. I don't want this channel to start a political debate or conversation. We're not gonna open that can of worms. Hey Mitch, what's up, buddy? Welcome to the podcast. Thank you, Ethan. Okay, so in Imaginary, there was potential with its concept, and in Terror, there was also potential with its concept. Unfortunately, both the movies have had the story. Unfortunately, the story for both of those movies felt cliched and contrived. Both of those movies have atrocious screenplay, especially not only in terms of its dialogue and characters, but how they either feel poorly developed or just there just to spout exposition, but how it's also so obsessed at shoving so much exposition dump. Both are poorly directed. Both films have terrible acting. Both films have terrible musical score. Both films have terrible cinematography. Both films have the editing being all over the place. Both Imaginary and Terror have sluggish pacing. And while Imaginary's third act is nothing more than a ripoff of Poltergeist, and while Terror has an idiotic as hell ending, here comes one of my favorite parts of the whole damn movie for both Imaginary and Terror. And it's not just the cliches. And to answer your question, Søren, yep, the fucking jump scares. Jump scares. Oh, and by the way, I better keep a professional tone in his pocket because Mitch is watching. Hi. Okay, but seriously, and this isn't the only time I'm going to talk about the jump scares in the film. As another horror film we're going to be discussing later on, also has their problems. But yeah, it's seriously, what is it with these jump scares in movies? If we're going to do jump scares in movies, you need to build tension and make the scares unpredictable. Like you need to have sorry, I'm stuttering a bit. You need to have us be caught off guard with those jump scares. Don't do the jump scares for the sake of it, and for the sake of being predictable. It loses the tension you're even trying to go for. And with Imaginary and Terra, that's exactly the case. It's just jump scares for the sake of it, and because of that, it's predictable as shit. You might as well have a counter, and it'll be like 3, 2, 1, duh! Oh, who didn't see that coming? Who didn't see that coming? And honestly, I'm saving my. I would be fed up and angry right now with those movies, but I'm saving my anger for this one particular horror film that we're going to talk about later on. So hang on to your seats, folks. But yeah, Terror and Imaginary are both terrible horror films, and they're easily one of the worst movies I've seen. They're easily on my list for one of the worst films of 2024 so far. And as you could have guessed, both Imaginary and Terra are getting a 0 out of 10 or an F. Boo!
Next, we have Problemista. This movie about an immigrant who tries to secure a visa to pursue his dreams in toy making is basically if you combine the visual style of Walter Mitty with the themes of Joker. I felt the situations involved with the lower class constantly getting shunned by the higher-ups in employment extremely compelling and honestly relatable. The performances are all solid, especially Julio Torres and Tilda Swinton. I did have some problems with the pacing, some scenes that honestly could have been cut, and the visual style sometimes not being consistent. Plus, there were some sequences in Spanish that were kind of hard to keep up since there weren't any English subs to translate it, but that might be because of the website I watched it in. I don't know if it's whatever. Regardless, I found this a solid outing from Julio Torres, which is worth seeking out. I'll definitely give Problemista the seal of approval.
And to answer your question, Mitch, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing Beetlejuice.
Yeah, it looks like it'll be really something. Something that will revitalize the career of Tim Burton, especially after Dumbo was not that well received.
Yeah. Anyway, we're Problemista. This is one of the better movies I've seen this year so far. Yes, it has a couple pacing issues, and there were a couple side characters that did feel underdeveloped, but the story felt well structured and highly engaging. Julio Torres' performance, as well as his writing and directing, were all fantastic. The acting was very good, especially from Tilda Swinton, who stole the entire show. I mean, what a performance she gave out. It has a fantastic musical score, terrific cinematography, great editing, excellent visuals, great humor, the main theme of immigration being well executed, and a very satisfying ending. So, yeah, I really like this movie. 9 out of 10 or an A-.
Yeah,
one of the better movies I've seen this year so far.
To answer your question, John Wick, here looks really interesting. Looks like it's going to be like a Zone of Interest, except without people dying and such.
Yeah, and I'm also looking forward to Sonic 3, Nick.
Same here.
All right. So looks like I'm on my own for like the next 2 reviews. So since I've seen both of these films, I'm going to talk about. So the next film I'm going to talk about is Arthur the King, and it's based on the true event of Arthur, the dog who crossed the jungle to find a home. It's based on the memoir. It's based on that memoir, and in the film, it's about the captain of an adventure racing team who befriends a wounded stray dog named Arthur, who accompanies the team on a grueling 435-mile endurance race through the I can't even pronounce this. through the down. Stupid tongue twisters. Dominican Republic. Through the Dominican Republic. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but yeah, that's what it's about. I know, Mitch. I know I know you're gonna have that. I know what you're gonna say to me at work next time I see you. Stop the stuttering. Stop.
Yeah, I know, John. Like Sonic 3's totally gonna do to Mufasa what the Scar did to Mufasa.
Yeah, really. Yeah, really. Okay. Okay, pushing all that bullshit aside. I think that's all, folks. Just kidding. Okay. So, God damn it, Mitch! You're always getting me every time. Oh my God. Okay. Now I can focus. I like this movie. I liked Arthur the King. The story felt highly engaging. It's nicely directed. The acting was very good, especially from Mark Wahlberg, Simu Liu, Juliet Rylance, and Nathalie Emmanuel. But the dog that played Arthur was easily the show stealer. The musical score was solid. It had great cinematography. The race aspects were easily the best parts of the whole film, since it does keep you on the edge of your seat. And the ending, without spoiling it, it's cathartic, but in a good way. Now, as for issues, I do think the screenplay could have used some more work on the dialogue, since it did feel clunky at times. And there were some editing choices that did come across as being a bit choppy and uneven. And it does have a share of predictability and cliches that you've seen in other films before as well. But otherwise, I liked it. 7 out of 10. I liked this movie. It was a solid, good time. As for the next film, oh boy, this next film. Oh boy. Okay. I saw the trailer for this when I went to go see one of my favorite movies of last year, which was American Fiction, and I loved Inside Out too, but we're going to discuss it on the next podcast. But anyway, as I was saying, I saw the trailer for this at my showing of American Fiction, and I was like, this could either be an interesting satire, or it could possibly fall flat. And okay, I'm not kidding when I say, I'm not kidding when I tell you what the name of the title is. The American Society of Magical Negroes. I'm not kidding. That's the name of the title. This is not me being racist. That is literally the name of the title. Yeah, I saw this movie, and it's supposed to be satirizing that trope where it features a young man who joins a clandestine group of magical African Americans committed to enhancing the lives of white individuals. This movie fucking sucked. Like, I'm not kidding. This movie fucking sucked. Like this guy This director, I know, one of the worst titles I've ever heard for a movie as well. But that's literally what it was called. Okay, it's supposed to be a satire on that trope, but the problem with it is that it's so poorly executed. Like, this movie misses the mark at, like, satirizing that trope by just being by also throwing in a different type of genre. And you don't throw in that trope you're satirizing only for you to do nothing with that genre whatsoever, and then instead moving on to a different genre. You don't do that. Not to mention, the story felt so misguided and convoluted. The directing was terrible, and so was the screenwriting, since it featured awful dialogue, terrible characterization, and a very inconsistent tone. The only redeeming thing in the film is that David Alan Grier gives out a solid performance, and the cinematography is great, but that's it. The rest of the acting was terrible. Especially from Justice Smith, who I found to be absolutely insufferable as Aaron. The musical score felt generic and underwhelming. And speaking of Aaron, he is absolutely insufferable. He is nothing but a wimp. He is nothing but an idiot. And he is nothing but just a stupid, whiny little bitch. That's all he is. It's clumsily edited. The pacing was a sluggish mess. The jokes are terrible. The effects look like made-for-TV garbage. And I'm not kidding when I say this. This movie has one of the worst endings I've ever seen in a movie this entire year. I'm gonna have to spoil this ending because I'm so going to get in trouble for this. Oh my god. Okay, so I'm gonna have to spoil this ending because this ending really made the whole experience such an insulting one at best. So there's this gag throughout the entire film where this girl is wearing a ring, and I'm not even kidding. The ring says "So swag." You think I'm joking? You think I'm joking? You think I'm joking? Here, let me type it for you. And you'll see what I mean. Yeah, that's what it says. So swag. Except, do you want to know what so swag translated to at the end of the film? Get ready for this bullshit. Get ready for this bullshit. So apparently, So Swag stands for Society of Supported Wives and Girlfriends. Just wait for it. Just wait for it. Oh, shut up, Mitch. Shut up. I'm not kidding. That's... I'm going to kick your ass, Mitch. I'm going to kick your ass. with your trolling scheme. But yeah, I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. That's what it literally translates to. I am not making this up. I am not making this up. Society of supportive wives and girlfriends. Like, you expect me to believe? You expect me to buy that shit? Really? Fuck this movie. No, seriously. Fuck this movie. The American Society of Magical Negroes is a cynical, frustratingly misguided, and insulting satire that does nothing with its topic it's satirizing whatsoever, especially since it plays it too safe because of how it's too timid to go all the way with it. One of the worst movies of the year, 1 out of 10 or D-. Fuck this movie.
Next, we have a movie called Love Lies Bleeding. And the story about Kathy O'Brien and Kristen Stewart playing lesbians who get caught in a web of crime conspiracy has enough sex appeal to fans of the two actresses, and they share dynamic chemistry together. The rest of the cast is good, the music is ambient, and the cinematography is a sight to behold. However, it can be a bit slow at times, and there are some times where the visuals and dream sequences go overboard at being weird and artsy. Like, they belong more in a David Lynch movie than a great crime drama. Nevertheless, regardless, this was both a fun, intense outing from Rose Glass, and it'll be interesting to see what she does next, and I'll give it the seal of approval.
Mitch, you troll. Mitch, you troll. Quit trolling, dude. Love you too, dude. Okay, so I love this movie. I love Love Lies Bleeding. I thought it was I thought it's one of the best movies I've seen this year so far. I love the story. I love the screenplay, especially with how excellent and well written the characters, the dialogue, and the tone, and how consistent the tone felt. Rose. Okay, let me rephrase that. I love the story. The screenplay was excellent, especially in terms of its well-written dialogue, terrific characterization, and how consistent and well balanced its tone felt. Rose Glass's directing was terrific. The acting, especially from Kristen Stewart, Katie O'Brien, Jenna Malone, and Ed Harris, was terrific. Clint Menzel's musical score was excellent. The cinematography was terrific. The editing was great, and so was the pacing. Excellent production design. And not to mention, this movie also relies on real tension, which is like, there is real tension in the movie, and let me tell you, all this had me on the edge of my seat throughout, especially with some of the scenes that had me going. Oh, and let me tell you, the movie is gory as hell, and I mean very, very gory. Like, the practical effects used in the film was absolutely terrific. The only problem I did have with the film was that I wasn't a fan of the ending. Now, I get why they did this. I get why she did this, but I felt I get why they did this, but I get why she did this, but I wish it sorry. I get why she did this, but I just didn't think it was executed properly. If I'm going to be honest, but otherwise, one of my favorite movies of the year so far. 9.5 out of 10, or an 8. I highly recommend you check out Love Lies Bleeding.
Next, I have One Life. This movie is basically about a man who saved hundreds of children from the then upcoming Germany attacks back in the 30s, as well as the aftermath several decades later. It's definitely well-meaning in its message, and it's got some fantastic performances, especially Anthony Hopkins. And there are effective moments throughout, including, especially in the third act. However, as it cuts back and forth between the 30s and 80s, it can be a bit disjointed at times, as well as slow throughout. Plus, I feel like a story like this has been done before and better in past movies, such as the aforementioned Schindler's List. So while this is certainly a good and well-meaning movie, it's not really something to rush out to see, especially the better movies out there covering this topic ultimately earned the seal of accuracy.
And yes, rest in peace, Bob Newhart. Really unfortunate he passed away. Tell Jacob I said hi, Mitch. And then I'm watching him. And yes, Søren, he is. Definitely is. Anyway, back to One Life. This is one of the better movies I've seen this year so far. The story felt highly engaging. The screenplay was great, especially in terms of its dialogue. The directing was terrific. The acting was, and so was the acting. Anthony Hopkins was brilliant, and so was Helena Bonham Carter. The musical score was great. The cinematography was terrific. It's very well edited throughout. It's got excellent production values and costume design. And the third act was absolutely terrific. And the ending was also very satisfying. There were a couple pacing issues that the movie suffers through, which is my only complaint I have with it. But otherwise, this is one of the better movies I've seen this year so far, and a really good movie to study in school, to study about the Holocaust in school. 9 out of 10 or an A-. I really recommend this one.
Next, we have, as Peter Griffin likes to put it, Roadhouse. The original movie has a cult status that's undeniable, but honestly, I wasn't a big fan of it. It did have Patrick Swayze's charisma and cheesiness here and there, but I found it to be a bit of a repetitive bore. Which is why I'm happy to announce that the Lyman's remake is a significant improvement on it. I don't think it's great, as it does have its pacing and editing issues here and there. The CGI is a bit obvious, and the change to make a main character a UFC fighter instead of a bouncer was kind of pointless. Regardless, the performances are all stellar, especially Jake Gyllenhaal, who makes Swayze proud. The action and fight sequences are a lot of fun, and it actually flows story-wise compared to the original. So while this isn't a great movie by any means, I still recommend it to both fans of the original Roadhouse and those who have found that film underwhelming. I'll give this remake the seal of adequacy. Next up is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Oh my god.
It seems like every one of these movies that's not the original has gotten its fair share of backlash. Ghostbusters 2 was a huge disappointment back in '89. Afterlife has got people split down the middle, and don't even get me started on the 2016 reboot. And somehow this has gotten the lowest.
I gotta be honest with you, Søren. I'd rather watch the 2016 reboot over this piece of shit.
And somehow this has the lowest rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And while I definitely get people's problems with it, I'd be lying if I said this is another worthy sequel. The cast continues to be as charismatic as they've been before, from the OG cast in Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson to the Afterlife cast with McKenna Grace and Paul Rudd, to the newcomers like Patton Oswalt, like Kamal Nanjiani. The visuals are fun as always, and while the amount of subplots may have been a tad hard to catch up on, and the pacing can be a bit slow at times, but by the end, it'll pull through. So while this is far from perfect, I still say see this movie whether you're a hardcore fan or a casual moviegoer, and see what makes Ghostbusters feel good. I'll give Frozen Empire the seal of approval.
You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming, Mitch. You knew it was coming. You knew I was going to bash this one.
I've carried your fat ass for too long, Mets. I'm not going to have you cost us a competition because your mind's on a fucking Happy Meal instead of on pitch.
Sorry, Mets, I had to.
Shit busters, I was... Oh, and by the way, speaking of Empire, actually, Mitch, you suck. Actually, speaking of Empire, how's this for a tune? That's your Empire right there. Yeah, if you live in Illinois, you get the reference right there. Okay, so Mitch?
Why are you still sitting there? Get the fuck out!
Yeah, really. Here's what I'll say about this movie. Most of the acting, including from McKenna Grace, Paul Rudd, Carrie Coon, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and Bill Murray, was very good. The film has great visual effects, great cinematography, and the musical score was solid. However, I'm not lying when I say this. This Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is the worst Ghostbusters movie I've ever seen so far. The story was a bloated mess, especially with it having so many plot threads that go absolutely nowhere. The screenplay was a hot mess, especially with how messy the characterization felt. The directing was all over the place, and so was the editing. The pacing was a sluggish mess. Nearly all the jokes they threw in the film fell very flat. And not only was the ending anticlimactic, no, it's not worse than Madam Web.
Dude, that's like saying being slapped in the face is better than getting kicked in the balls.
Yeah, really. That's good. Yeah, you better give me a pass, boy.
And considering that Madam Web is my worst movie of all time, it's gonna be hard to top it.
Yeah, really. And there's another film that's almost giving that film some competition I'll talk about later on. So, and we'll get to that. Yeah, you better give me a pass, Mitch. You better give me a pass, boy. I'm watching you, man. I am watching you. You better give me a... Oh, you're firing me? Huh? Well, how about you're fired? Okay. And don't worry, guys. It's a joke. It's just a joke. Don't take it seriously or out of context. Thank you. Okay, so not only did we have an anticlimactic ending, but here's my biggest problem with the film. Okay. I didn't have this problem in Ghostbusters Afterlife since it actually served a purpose. But this one managed to do that in the worst way possible and in the wrong places. And that is the fact that the callbacks and fan service that were used in the film felt horribly handled, horribly executed, and horribly out of place, and were just there just for the sake of fan service. And you're my boy too, man. Okay, but yeah, that's another reason why this movie didn't work for me. Look, I don't mind fan service in movies as long as it's well handled, but the fan service in this one felt so poorly done that, again, it felt like it was there just for the sake of fan service. Nothing more, nothing less. Yeah, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is not only one of the year's biggest disappointments and a huge step down from Ghostbusters Afterlife, but it's also a contrived and unfocused mess, and without a doubt, the worst Ghostbusters movie I've seen by far. Oh, and don't worry, Ethan. I knew it was a joke. Not to worry. But yeah, 3 out of 10.
And speaking
hey,
of,
listen. Hey, Ethan, don't worry if it wasn't. Don't worry if it was offensive. Don't worry about that.
And speaking of sequels with the word Empire in the title.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, is some monster starting to run out of steam. After the last Godzilla Kong movie ended on a high note, I guess Warner Bros. Decided to give it one more go. But ultimately, this is a poor imitation. The story is all too familiar and kind of all over the place. The human characters aren't nearly as compelling as they've been before. The effects are okay, but nothing spectacular. Godzilla is barely in it, despite being in the title. The last 10 minutes are terrifying, but it ends just as quickly as it begins. Honestly, it's best if they just stop it with these movies, because after Godzilla Minus One was such a phenomenon, all these movies are becoming the mediocre fast food to that movie's fine dining. I'll give Godzilla Kong the seal of mediocrity.
And you know what, Søren? You just made me miss the opportunity to do this. Yeah. So, and yeah, they did. They did, and that was one of the biggest problems with this movie. That was one of the biggest problems with this movie. Okay. So, okay. This is without a doubt the worst of the MonsterVerse movies, and if you expect me to compare this to Godzilla minus one, don't, because they're both different movies, and I didn't see the former when it first came out back in December. But yeah, that being said, the story was all over the place. The screenplay was a hot mess, especially in terms of its questionable world building, bad dialogue, and messy characterization. Adam Wingard's directing was a muddled mess. Brian Tyree Henry, Rebecca Hall, and Dan Stevens. I know everybody said that they were actually the best parts of the whole film, but I'm sorry. I thought they were horribly wasted due to how poorly written their characters felt, and they're not given that much to do in the film. It's clumsily edited. The pacing was a sluggish mess. It's full of cliches that you've seen in other films before. Owen, how ironic that this movie... Again, it's not worse than Madam Web.
Nothing's worse than that piece of dog shit.
Yeah, really. Oh, hi, Flurry. Okay. Oh, okay. So, how ironic that this movie is called Godzilla X Kong, the new Okay. Hold on. Let me... How ironic that it's called... How ironic that this movie is called Godzilla X Kong, the new empire, and yet Godzilla is barely in it all that much. Like, what kind of crap is this? The only redeeming things I found in the film is that the musical score is good. It's very good. The cinematography is great. The visual effects are actually solid, and there are some entertaining battle sequences, including the final battle of the film. Otherwise, though, this is the worst of the MonsterVerse movies, and yeah, 3 out of 10 or a D+. I'm actually looking forward to seeing that one.
That's going to be a fun movie.
Yeah. All right, so continuing on with the last remaining March movies, next movie I'm going to talk about is Immaculate. It stars Sydney Sweeney, who's also one of the producers of the film, and it focuses on a young novice who was invited to reside a picturesque Italian convent, but slowly realizes the terrifying secrets it harbors. Your opinion, dude. Your opinion, but that's just how I feel. Okay, so Immaculate. I didn't even know. I did see the trailer for this at my showing of Dune Part 2, and it actually looks really interesting. I thought you were talking about Godzilla. It's called the New Empire and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I thought you were talking about those things, Mitch.
I thought you were talking about the Immaculate.
Oh yeah, okay. So I saw the trailer for Immaculate at my showing of my showing of Dune Part 2, and it looks really interesting because I like the setting where it actually takes place at a church. Where it takes place at a Roman Catholic church. And that it's involved like religion. And here's what I'll say about the film. And let me get the negatives out of the way first. I did feel the screenplay could have used some improvement on some of the dialogue and some of the side characters. There are some jump scares in the film that feel shoehorned in, cliched, and predictable. The pacing felt uneven at times, and so were some of the editing choices made in the film. But otherwise, Immaculate was really, really. Otherwise, I actually liked Immaculate. The story felt intriguing and well structured. It's very well directed. The acting, especially from Sydney Sweeney, was terrific. I mean, Sydney Sweeney, talk about her performance as Sister Cecilia. Like, what a performance she gave out in that film. It's not hard to see why she wanted to make this movie, because I see the passion that she and director Michael Mohan had behind the camera, and it definitely shows with this one. It definitely shows. The score was fantastic. The cinematography was terrific. The musical score felt haunting. The cinematography was terrific. It has excellent production values and costume design. There are some moments of real tension throughout. There are some moments of real tension that the movie throws in. And it has some excellent practical effects, especially the gore and the ending. Holy shit. The ending was... It was like bonkers. It was like bonkers. And in the best way possible. Like, it was insane. Yeah, I mean, throughout the whole film, it was a 6. It was a 6 out of 10. But that insane ending made me up the score to a 7 out of 10 or a B. I recommend giving Immaculate a watch.
Next, we have a movie called In the Land of Saints and Sinners. Honestly, this movie looked like it was going to be one of Liam Neeson's more interesting thrillers in recent years. And granted, the performances are all solid, the cinematography and music are fun, and it's got some tense moments throughout. Unfortunately, the story was like it was trying to be Banshees up in a Sharon meets Logan, but here's the problem. My problem, at least. The characters are all flat, they contribute nothing more than their TV tropes archetypes, and pretty much nothing happens throughout half the movie. And as a result, this was kind of a slog to sit through. And so, while this is an improvement over the likes of Blacklight and Retribution, it's a far cry from the better movies like Taken and Memory. I just hope Liam Neeson can end his career on a high note further down the line, because, as I've said many times before, he's led one of the most iconic and versatile careers out of any actor in his time. But for now, Saints and Sinners gets a seal of mediocrity.
Excuse me. I actually like this. I actually really liked it in the Land of Saints and Sinners. I actually really like this one. It's a powerful. Yeah. I felt this. I felt this is one of the better movies Liam Neeson has been in quite a while. The story felt engaging and nicely structured. It's well directed. The acting, especially from Liam Neeson, was terrific, and so was the performances of Kerry Condon, Jack Gleason, and Søren Hines. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Fantastic musical score, terrific cinematography, very good screenplay. The movie built some real tension into the mess, and the climax was intriguing, and the ending was very satisfying. Now, as for issues, there were a couple pacing issues that the film suffered through. There were also a couple of editing choices that did feel a bit uneven at times, and the themes, and I wish they would have delved more into the themes of religion, redemption, morality just a bit more, since all those themes did feel underdeveloped. But otherwise, it's a powerful. I found In the Land of Saints and Sinners to be a powerful, entertaining, and gripping thriller that had me on the edge of my seat throughout. 8 out of 10, or a B+. One of the better Liam Neeson movies I've seen in recent years. So, good job, Liam Neeson.
Next we have a movie called Monkey Man. And
Wait. Before we get to that, I have one last movie to cover for March.
Oh, okay. Go on.
Okay, so next movie, so to finish off March, I'm going to talk about this next movie. You might have not heard about this film, but it does star two well-known actors, Sean Penn and Ty Sheridan. It's called Asphalt City. And it's based on a novel called Black Flies. And Sean Penn and Ty Sheridan are basically paramedics working in New York City. So now, when I saw this movie, I had some. Now, when I saw this movie, I had a hard time figuring out how to feel about this one. As there were a lot of things that I liked, but then there were a lot of things I didn't like. Now let's talk about the ones that I did like. The acting was very good, especially from Ty Sheridan and Sean Penn, who are absolutely terrific in this movie. It's very well directed. The musical score felt haunting. The musical score felt haunting and brilliant. The cinematography was excellent, and I was also really impressed with the way the film was saying a lot about a theme involving mental illness, as well as highlighting that as well as the harsh reality of working at the emergency medical system. Trust me, for those, like, however, the movie tries to be like what Martin Scorsese's Bringing Out the Dead felt, but the problem is that it felt complex and all over the place, especially with how unevenly structured its narrative felt, since it throws in so many plot lines that either felt underdeveloped or unneeded. I also felt the screenplay could have used some more work on the dialogue, since it felt clunky at times. And not to mention the rest of the characters feeling underdeveloped, and I felt the movie could have explored more with its themes. There were also some editing choices that felt uneven and choppy at times, and the pacing was a wonky mess as well. But really, my biggest problem with the film is that the film's unrelenting, bleak tone made it a bit of a difficult experience for me. Made it a bit difficult for me to enjoy this. And to answer your question, Mitch, I have to be honest and say that it's Beetlejuice.
Definitely Wolverine for me.
Yeah. So, overall, Asphalt City features brilliant performances by Ty Sheridan and Sean Penn, and the movie does offer some intriguing moments here and there while doing a brilliant job with the way it highlights and saying a lot about mental health and the harsh reality of working at the EMS. But its unstructured narrative and unrelentingly bleak tone makes this a tough one to sit through. So overall, it's a mixed bag. 5 out of 10 or C+. C+.
Now we're going to get to Monkey Man, and this is the kind of movie where Dev Patel can't decide whether he wants to make his directorial debut a John Wick-inspired action movie or an intellectual drama along the lines of Terrence Malick. And here it's like the two movies are just fighting for the spotlight as you're watching them unfold on screen at the same time. And while the story itself is fine enough and the performances are solid, it's marred by a ton of slow moments. And while the action is well choreographed and brutal, it's ruined by a shit ton of shaky cam that kind of makes it hard to comprehend half the time. So while this is a decent enough film, I only hope Patel can do better if he wants to direct another movie. Ultimately, Monkey Man gets the seal of adequacy.
For me, I really love this movie. Now, my only complaint I did have with the film is that there were a couple editing choices the filmmates that did feel distracting at times, especially with some of the jarring back and forth quick cuts the filmmates. But otherwise, I love this movie. I actually love this movie. The story felt well structured. The writing was brilliant. Dev Patel also delivers not only an excellent performance, but also his directing was fantastic, especially with the way you could see the vision and passion he had behind the camera and the way he directs the action in the film. The acting from the rest of the actors was terrific, including Sharlto Copley, who's one of the best parts of the whole film. The soundtrack was excellent. The cinematography is great. Yeah, there were moments where I did feel a bit of the shaky cam, but honestly, that didn't really bother me that much. The pacing was great. The themes of corruption and discrimination in India felt well executed. The action scenes were fantastic. The kill sequence, the kills and the action was fantastic. Especially with how no holds barred. Especially with how both of those felt. Excuse me. Let me rephrase that. When it came to the kills and the action scenes, they are no holds barred, and that's what impressed me the most about those. And the practical gore effects also added a nice touch to those kills as well. And I was really impressed with the way it ended as well. So overall, Monkey Man is such an impressive directorial debut for Dev Patel, and it's one of the grisliest yet most monumentally entertaining, triumphant, and powerful films I've seen this year so far. So, yeah, I love this movie, Søren. 9.5 out of 10 or an A. I loved it. And the next film I'm going to talk about is another religion horror film, except this is a prequel. This is a prequel to one of the finest horror films of all time. It's called The First Omen.
Now, I'm going to be real here and say I didn't really like the original Omen movie. It had its moments here and there and featured a great performance from Gregory Peck, but it was kind of boring at times and cheesy at other times. So, when it comes to this prequel, it required a freaking miracle to impress me, especially considering that there are certain modern follow ups to classic horror films like Exorcist Believer and the Halloween sequels I hear are garbage. And I'm happy to say this is that miracle. Unlike a plethora of horror films that rely on constant jump scares and characters making the stupidest decisions for the sake of the plot, this movie relies mostly on creepy atmosphere, compelling performances, and still a musical score and callbacks that actually mean something. Despite a couple pointless jump scares and some slow moments, this is one of the few horror prequels that actually outdo the original film, and it's definitely worth seeing if you're sick of modern horror. I'll give this a seal of approval.
I really enjoyed the first. I loved the original Omen film. I think it's one of the finest horror films I've ever seen, and yet I really enjoyed the prequel as well. Now I don't think it outdoes the original film as Soren stated, but it was a very good prequel. The story felt well structured and highly engaging. The writing was very good, especially with the characterization. It's very well directed. The acting was terrific, especially from Neil Tiger Free, who delivered such a brilliant breakthrough performance as Margaret. The musical score was excellent. It has terrific cinematography. And not only does the film deliver some real tension and intrigue, but what I loved about this movie was, what really impressed me about this movie was how it went all the way with its disturbing imagery, which also adds to how terrific the practical effects looked. Now, as for issues with the film, other than a couple pacing issues that the movie suffers through, there were some elements in the film that came off as being a bit predictable. There were a couple editing choices that did feel a bit uneven, and I did not like the ending, especially mainly because of how messy and last minute it felt. But otherwise, I really liked this movie. But otherwise, I thought the first Omen was a very good prequel. 8 out of 10 or B plus. Oh, and to answer your question, way better than that shit ass of a film.
Well, that's like comparing a piece of pie to a piece of dog shit.
Yeah, really. And thank goodness for Sony. Thank goodness for Sony doing that, because Bob Iger at this point has been pissing me off.
I mean, he's way better than Bob Chapek, but that's not really saying much.
No, it's like, and to answer your question, there are some movies I am looking forward to seeing on later on this summer. Like, I want to see Longlegs, I want to see Maxine, I want to see A Quiet Place Day One. Excuse me. I want to see Sing Sing, Deadpool and Wolverine. And there are some other films, and there are other films coming in August I'm looking forward to seeing, but we be here all day, so I'm just gonna cut it. I'm just gonna keep it that brief. But yeah. Oh yeah, and she sucks too. Let's not forget about that.
Especially with the Argyle. I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I heard that series was just garbage. The Acolyte, excuse me.
The Acolyte, yeah. All right, so next movie we're going to talk about is Wicked Little Letters. It's based on a true scandal involving an investigation into an anonymous author of numerous cruelly insulting letters sent to the residents of seaside town Littlehampton. To be honest, I don't know which actor's going to do better. I mean,
if I were to choose, probably Jackman.
Yeah, maybe Jackman. Oh yeah, and David Zaslav can eat my ass. Like seriously, he sucks too. Fuck David Zaslav. Okay, so going into Wicked Little Letters, I didn't know much about this movie other than the fact that Olivia Colman and Jessie Buckley were in the film. And my God, I really enjoyed this movie a lot. The acting is like, my goodness. I don't know if that's PG. What? Don't even get me started on Velma, dude. Okay. So as I was saying, yeah, I really like this movie. The acting was terrific, especially from Olivia Colman and Jessie Buckley, who are both fantastic in this movie. And what I also liked about this movie was that how the movie shows that not everything in the 1920s was good, clean fun. Oh, no. It even shows that fuck you. This 1920 shit is fucking not. It's not good, clean fucking fun. And that's what I really liked about this movie. Like, not everything in the 1920s was bloody good, clean fun. No. And that's what I liked about the screenplay, and with the way the dialogue was written as well. It's very well directed. The story felt highly engaging. The musical score was, I really liked the musical score. The terrific cinematography, great editing. The humor felt well written and clever, and the ending had me dying of laughter. No spoilers, but you gotta see the ending for yourself. Like, oh my God, because of how hilarious it felt. Now, aside from the pacing feeling a bit of a wonky mess at times and the mystery elements, now aside from the pacing being a wonky mess, another glaring issue I did have with the film is that the mystery elements of the film felt very predictable, especially when it's revealed halfway through who was responsible for sending these horrific foul letters. But otherwise, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Wicked Little Letters. It features some powerhouse performances by Olivia Colman and Jessie Buckley, and I found this movie to be hilarious and entertaining throughout. 8 out of 10, or B+. I really like this movie.
Next, we have Civil War, and after the disappointment of 2012's Men, 2022's Men, this looked like this is going to be Alex Garland's biggest and best film yet. Ultimately, it's kind of a mixed bag. It's got some of the most well-staged and brutal action I've seen this year so far, and the sound design and cinematography are stellar. But there are instances where it kind of meanders a bit, and certain sequences could have easily been cut. Some of the actors like Kirsten Dunst and Stephen McKinley Henderson are fantastic, but others like Jesse Plemons and Nelson Lee were kind of obnoxious. The original score is fantastic, but some of the songs they chose didn't really fit this gritty, realistic thriller. The climax at Washington, D.C. is both thrilling and suspenseful until it just kind of stops with no real resolution. In the end, this is a movie with some of the best sequences and production values of the year, but it's ultimately marred by some dumb shit here and there. I definitely recommend this one, but don't expect this next Children of Men or anything. I'll give Civil War the seal of accuracy.
For me, I love this movie. In fact, Civil War is one of the best movies I've seen this entire year. I thought Civil War was a gripping, powerful, powerful and exhilarating film, and a brilliant return to form for Alex Garland following the Disastrous Men that really shows a brilliant cautionary tale on like what our world could become if it gets out of control. What Civil War could look like if it gets out of control, as well as being like a brilliant love letter to like journalism. That's what I got from watching Civil War. Like, and for that makes it one of the best movies I've seen this year so far. The story felt well structured, interesting, and gripping. Alex Garland's writing and directing were both terrific. The acting, especially from Kirsten Dunst, Callie Spaney, Stephen McKinley Henderson, Nick Offerman, and sorry, Søren, but I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this one. And Jesse Plemons, although they're not in a couple scenes that they're not really in the film all that much. All these actors delivered such terrific performances. Excuse me. The score was brilliant. The soundtrack was brilliant. The cinematography was terrific. It's very well edited, very well paced. And the sound design and mixing was terrific. It delivers some real tension throughout. And there are some gripping action scenes, especially. And when it came to some of the action scenes, especially in the third act, holy shit. They were so gripping that I was on the edge of my seat throughout. And with the ending, at first I didn't like the ending, but the more I thought about the ending, I was like, that honestly makes sense now on why they decided to go for that. Overall, I love Civil War. I really love this movie. It's a brilliant return to form for Alex Garland after the Disastrous Men, and it's one of the most powerful, gripping, and exhilarating films I've seen this year so far. I really love this movie. 10 out of 10 or an A+. Well done, Alex Garland. Well done.
Next, we have Abigail, and this movie about a group of ransommers who discover their Richmond star they kidnap has a dark secret. Features solid performances, especially from Melissa Weir, as well as some good cinematography and gore effects. And even if the characters aren't that remarkable, and it does have its pacing and jump scare issues, I still say this is worth seeing if you're a fan of the genre, as I'll give Abigail the seal of approval.
Abigail's one of the better movies I've seen this year so far. This is one of the better movies I've seen this year so far. Not only do you have the story feeling well structured and highly. Not only do you have the story feeling high. Not only was the story highly engaging, but the writing was sharp and clever, especially in its dialogue and how it perfectly balances the tones of comedy and horror. The directing was terrific. I mean, this is from the same guys that brought us Scream 5 and 6 and Ready or Not. And boy, did they deliver and boy, does Radio Silence deliver fantastic directing with this one. The acting was great, especially Alicia Weir, Melissa Barrera, and Dan Stevens being the biggest standouts in the whole film. The musical score was very good. The cinematography was excellent. Great editing. There's also some great use of humor. The horror elements in the film work because of how they build real tension and suspense instead of relying on those tired, old, cliche jump scares. Excellent practical effects, especially with some of the process they use. And what I also really liked about this movie was how self-aware it's also self-aware at being what it is, while also having fun with it too. And the ending was also and I also found the ending to be very satisfying as well. Oh, sorry. Anyway, and I also found the ending to be very satisfying as well. Now, other than a couple pacing issues that the film suffers through, as well as a couple side characters that did feel underdeveloped, Abigail is nevertheless a highly entertaining, chilling highly entertaining, chilling, a nice return to form for the vampire genre, and a bloody good time. Easily one of the better movies I've seen this year so far. 9 out of 10 or an A-.
Next, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and it seems like Guy Ritchie's on a roll in terms of pumping out movies almost every year for the past half decade. Unfortunately, for every good movie like The Gentleman and Wrath of Man, he seems to end up with a dud like Operation Fortune and, unfortunately, this movie. I will say all the actors seem to be solid, but none of the characters are really that memorable, and it's got the same problem with Operation Fortune. It promises an action movie, but there's little to no action throughout this entire movie. However, I did find the action scenes pretty fun, unlike that movie. If you're going to this movie to see British folk killing Nazis, you're better off just watching Glorious Bastards again, since this was yet another disappointment from Guy Ritchie, which gets a seal of mediocrity.
For me, I thought the movie was all right. It's very well directed by Guy Ritchie. The acting, especially from Henry Cavill, Isa Gonzalez, and Alan Richardson, was very good. The musical score was fantastic. The cinematography was great. It has very good production values and costume design. And there are some fun action sequences throughout the film, especially in the third act. Now, I do agree with you, Søren, that the story did feel a bit all over the place. The screenplay was an overwritten mess, especially with its stiff dialogue, most of the characterization feeling messy, and the tone feeling inconsistent where it can't decide if it wants to be a spy action film or a comedy film. There were also some editing choices that did feel uneven. It also has a share of cliches that you've seen in other films before. And what disappointed me the most about this movie was that it also lacked any stake or danger the film was providing as well. Like, there's no sense of danger that the characters were feeling. Like, I don't know what was that about. So overall, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is definitely an uneven mess when it comes to the way it depicted the Operation Postmaster in the film. But Guy Ritchie's energetic, stylized directing, its well-acted cast, and fun action sequences do help carry this one to be an overall decent movie. So I thought it was fine. 6 out of 10 or a B-. And now the next film I'm going to talk about, oh boy. And to answer your question, Mitch, no, I don't. I like the first two Karate Kid films. Part 3 was not good, and neither was the next Karate Kid. The remake, on the other hand, was terrible. Favorite Cartoon Network show? You know, I would say the Powerpuff Girls and Courage the Cowardly Dog. Okay, so next movie's an interesting one because this did pique my interest. The moment I first heard about this, and it's called Sasquatch Sunset, and it's basically involving like a family of Sasquatches in a misty forest of North America who find themselves on a collision course with the ever-changing world around them. So I'm not gonna lie, I was actually really interested in checking this one out, given the fact that this movie is about a family of like Sasquatches. And here's what I'll say about the film. It's well directed. There is some originality to its concept. The acting was brilliant, especially from Jesse Eisenberg and Riley Keough, who played the male and female Sasquatches. They were brilliant. The musical score was both haunting and beautiful. The cinematography was terrific and absolutely one of the best I've seen in the movie this year so far. And the makeup and hairstyling they used on the actors to make them look like they're actually Sasquatches is absolutely astounding. Like, like if that's the only thing I feel this movie should get nominated for is like makeup and hairstyling. Like this is brilliant makeup, especially with how they designed, especially with like how they had like the actors look like they're actually Sasquatches. Like it must have taken a lot of time with the makeup, which I gotta applaud the makeup artist for that. However, this is one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen in quite some time. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but the problem sorry about that. Damn it, Mitch! Sorry about that, guys. My laptop is experiencing some technical difficulties lately. I do apologize for that. But anyway, back to this. Anyway, back to this. So the problem with this movie is that I was a little disappointed that when I said that this is one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen, I don't mean that in a bad way. Let me rephrase that. So it has some things in it that are fantastic. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
So, okay. I'm sorry. And yeah, my computer does suck. It's like first the overheating, and now the battery problem. Okay, so one of my biggest problems. I know I'm paying the price for this. I should have, but unfortunately, this laptop I'm using is under a 1-year warranty, and my mom still has not had time to call the services. And because we've been busy moving to the new house lately. We've been busy moving to the new house. Suck dick. Yeah, my computer sucks dick. Anyway, moving on before I get a little carried away a bit. So what I like about this movie is that I love how there's some originality. How there's some originality to to what they're telling the story involving a family of Sasquatches. But what made this a really weird experience was that it focuses more on the vulgar aspect of the Sasquatches. What are instead of focusing on the real genuine parts. I'm gonna kick your ass, Mitch. I'm gonna kick your ass. That's my biggest glaring. Anyway, that's one of my biggest issues with the film is that rather than focusing on the heartwarming aspects of the Sasquatch family, it instead focuses on the vulgar aspects, like excuse me, I'm not even kidding. It's humor they placed in Sasquatch Sunset felt very juvenile and idiotic. I'm not even kidding. You literally see Sasquatches peeing and pooping. And then there's this one, I'm not kidding, Sasquatches peeing and pooping. Sasquatch piss, Sasquatch shit. How is that funny? This is another reason why toilet humor has been one of my biggest pet peeves in movies. And with this, it's just toilet humor for the sake of it. That's my final say on you, Mitch. Better watch out, man. Anyway, that's my biggest problem with the film is that the toilet humor they used in Sasquatch Sunset felt forced, juvenile, and idiotic. And because of that, the story didn't latch onto me as much as I hoped it would, since it felt nothing more than a contrived mess. The writing is also a mess, especially since the Sasquatch characters felt underdeveloped and thin, and the whole shtick with them having no dialogue, while having a lot of potential, got old very quick. There were also some editing choices that felt all over the place, and I already mentioned the humor. And with the ending felt anticlimactic. So, yeah, overall, this is one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. Sasquatch Sunset is original, and there are some moving and memorable moments here and there, Unfortunately, because the film focuses more on the vulgar aspects of those beasts, the film felt contrived and juvenile. Yeah, 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. I really wanted to love this one, but at the end of the day, it was just a mixed bag. I didn't like it.
Next, I have Rebel Moon Part 2, and yeah, it hasn't gotten better. This movie continues to rip off Rogue One without any of the memorable characters, good music, and good effects. I guess I'd rather watch this one than the first one, but it's only because it's got a bit more action, but even then the action is still not great. Zack Snyder, just stop it with these movies because it's apparent you can't come up with original stories to save your life.
Original my ass!
Yeah, I'm giving this movie and this fucking franchise as a whole to seal disapproval.
Like, for God's sake, Zack Snyder, stop pulling these excuses out of your ass by saying like, oh, this is the tech demo reel of the Rebel movies. That's not actually the real version of my movie. Why didn't you release the R-rated version in the first place? Like, dude, stop milking the shit out of this.
Don't know, don't care. Anyways, next movie is Boy Kills World, and this was a stylistically fun time filled with well-choreographed and gory fight sequences, stellar actors including Bill Skarsgård, as well as some brisk editing and cinematography. As for nitpicks, besides the slow piece here and there, I have one major nitpick. H. John Benjamin. He's not bad, but every time I hear his voice, all I hear is Pennywise being voiced by Bob Belcher. Other than that, this is a hidden gem from this year that's worth seeking out, and I'll give it the seal of approval.
To me, this movie was a mess. Now, granted, Bill Skarsgård and Jessica Rothe both give off some very good performances in the film. The film has a solid soundtrack, and the cinematography is good, and the action sequences are admittedly a lot of fun to watch, especially with how over the top, yet bloody, well choreographed, shot, edited, and directed they felt. However, I cannot say the same for anything else. The story was a predictable mess. The screenplay was terrible, especially in terms of its dialogue, characterization, and tone. The directing was all over the place. The editing was a choppy mess. The pacing was a sluggish mess. The rest of the actors, including Michelle Dockery, and even poor Sharlto Copley, feel horribly wasted. Since they're not given that much to do in the film. While Brett Gelman was absolutely insufferable as Gideon. It's also very predictable, especially with the reveals. Most of the comedy also felt shoehorned in. But my biggest problem with the film Bye, Mitch. Thanks for coming on the show. Oh, and to answer your question, I'm not looking forward to it. But my biggest glaring issue with Boy Kills World is that its use of narration felt extremely forced and repetitive. Look, I don't mind narration in movies as long as it serves its purpose, but when you use it like throughout the whole film, sometimes it can get real repetitive, especially if it's not well written. I mean, yeah, Dances with Wolves had narration in it, but the thing is, the narration felt well written. Boy Kills World's narration, on the other hand, felt shoehorned in and pointless. Especially when the narration tries to provide some comedy into the mess, which was not that funny. Overall, Boy Kills World features some good performances by Bill Skarsgård and Jessica Rothe, and it does feature some fun action here and there, but the film felt boring and predictable, and worst of all, a contrived mess. Sorry, Søren, but this is a 3 out of 10 or a D+ for me. I did not like this one at all.
Next is Challengers, and I'll give Luca Guadagnino credit for making this a different kind of sports film, as this is less of a typical inspirational drama and more of a love triangle between two competing tennis players and the woman they both love. The three main actors are all solid. The cinematography and editing during the tennis scenes are fantastic as well. But here's the main problem I have with it. It's kind of all over the place. It comes between all these different points in time in their lives, and half the time I could barely keep up. That and it's extremely slow sometimes. Like, I could cut like 20 to 30 minutes out of here and there and miss nothing. Also, the electronic music they're going for is good during some moments, but it really did not fit during the more emotional and subtle moments. So while this isn't the best sports film of its kind, it's a far cry from all those underdog stories that just tell the same story over and over again. So I'll give the director props for trying something new for the genre, and I'll give this movie as a whole the seal of accuracy.
For me, it's one of the best movies I've seen this entire year. I thought Challengers was a highly engaging, seductive, entertaining and like compelling sports like tennis film that does a fantastic job dealing with the way it handles like love, identity, and toxic relationships. I thought it was another brilliant film from Luca Guadagnino, honestly, Søren. The story felt well structured and highly engaging. The screenplay was excellent, especially in terms of its dialogue and characterization. And honestly, I didn't mind the back and forth sequences. I honestly felt how they structured those. I honestly felt how they edited and structured those scenes back and forth. I thought that was brilliantly handled. Luca Guadagnino's directing was terrific. The acting, especially from Zendaya, was terrific. Oh my god! And speaking of Zendaya, what a year she's had so far. First Dune Part 2, and now this film. What a year she's having so far. And yes, her character is such a douchebag throughout, but you hate her guts. But man, she's one of those characters you love to hate. And that's what I found powerful about the performance she gave out. As for Josh O'Connor and Mike Face, they also delivered some terrific performances as well. I love the musical score by Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross. The cinematography was terrific, and so was the editing, especially when it came to the tennis match sequences, which were fantastic to watch, especially with how they were shot, edited, choreographed, and directed. The pacing was great. There's some real tension throughout. The themes of identity, legacy, love, and toxic relationships felt well executed, and the ending was absolutely terrific. One of the best endings I've seen in a movie this entire year. Overall, Challengers is one of the year's best films. 10 out of 10 or an A+. Well done, Luca Guadagnino. And now I present my final film I'm reviewing for April before we move on to most of the May films, and it is We Grown Now. We Grown Now is a coming-of-age drama film involving two best friends, Malik and Eric, who both live in a Cabrini Green housing complex in the early 1990s. Not knowing much about this movie other than its setting takes place in Chicago, and hearing that Journey Smollett and Lowell Howery were both in this movie made this the biggest surprise I've seen this entire year so far. on top of the story feeling well structured and highly engaging, the writing was terrific. Like, the characters felt real and well developed, and the dialogue felt riveting. And it's very well directed. Not to mention the acting was terrific. Blake Cameron James and Gian Knight Ramirez delivered some of the best breakthrough performances I've seen this year so far, and they had some really good chemistry in the film too. Since their on-screen chemistry in the film felt so real that it honestly made me feel like these two were actually best friends. And there are some brilliant performances by Lowell Howery, Journey Smollett, and S. Apatha Murkison, who, by the way, S. Apatha Murkison, she plays the grandmother in the film, and no joke, this is one of the best portrayals of a grandmother I've ever seen on film. Especially since Minari. She was that great. And if you don't know, she was in some shows including like Law and Order, Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, and Chicago PD, and she was absolutely brilliant as the grandmother. Like, this is one of the best supporting performances I've seen this year so far. The musical score was fantastic. The cinematography was beautiful. The editing was terrific. The pacing was excellent. Its visuals are stunning and cosmic. The sound design was brilliant. The themes of joy, hope, imagination, friendship, childhood, and hardships felt well executed. And on top of that, it has one of the most emotional endings I've seen in the movie this year so far. Like I saw this with my mom in the theater, and she burst into tears, and I got very misty-eyed as well by the time that ending happened. Now, I do have one minor complaint. It's just minor, but I do have one minor flaw with the film. There were a couple of side characters, including Lowell Howery's character, that I wish we could have gotten to know more of. But honestly, that's really it. We Grown Now overall is a compelling, poignant, honest, visually stunning, deeply moving portrait of friendship, childhood, hardships, and the choices, decisions, and sacrifices one makes to improve on their life. It's easily one of the best movies I've seen this year so far. A very enthusiastic 9.5 out of 10 or an A. I really love this movie. Check it out.
Next, I have Humane, and much like Brandon Cronenberg, Caitlin Cronenberg vows to follow in her father's footsteps as she directs this dystopian future where the world decides to euthanize a portion of the human population for the sake of the planet. Despite the premise being similar to films such as Killing of a Sacred Deer and Knock at the Cabin, what really sells it is the cast and their characters, except for Enrico Colantoni, who kind of got on my nerves. The cinematography and music are all solid. I will say the third act was a little off at times, but otherwise, this is yet another solid thriller from the Cronenbergs that's worth seeking out if you're a fan of their movies. I'll give it the seal of approval. And next we have The Fall Guy. And since Marvel was too occupied to fill up the usual first spot in the summer movie season, this was still a helpful way to kick it off. Featuring a stuntman who gets caught up with a conspiracy involving the films that he's on, this is probably the best social commentary on the film industry since Tropic Thunder. Then the cast is all stellar, especially Ryan Gosling, but the action sequences are what really sell this whole experience. David Leach's love for the action genre and stunt work as a profession is apparent throughout this entire filmography, and this is definitely his most apparent. So if you're in the mood for a badass action film that also takes a jab at the stuff wrong with Hollywood nowadays, this movie is perfect for you, and it gets an enthusiastic seal cinema.
I love this movie. I think it's one of the funniest movies I've seen this year so far, and one of the most highly entertaining films of the year too. The story felt highly engaging, and on top of the screenplay feeling clever, intelligent, and well written, as well as David Leitch's directing being fantastic. What really sells this movie is that this is a brilliant social comment, as Søren stated. Not only is this a brilliant social commentary on Hollywood, but it was also a brilliant love letter to filmmaking as well as the art of stunt making. And that's what I really loved about this movie. Not to mention the acting was terrific, especially from Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, who had some really good chemistry in the film. And Aaron Taylor Johnson and Winston Duke are also great in the film as well. It has a great soundtrack, great editing, great pacing, terrific cinematography, fun and exhilarating action sequences, and brilliant use of stunts, and a third act that was very chaotic yet fun and exhilarating. And I did laugh at most of the jokes throughout. Granted, there were 10% of the jokes that did fall a bit flat for me, but that's it. That's it. Overall, The Fall Guy features Ryan Gosling in one of his finest performances he's given out in his career, and it was a hilarious, exhilarating, and highly entertaining action comedy that is also a brilliant love letter to filmmaking and the art of stunt making. Easily my favorite movie David Leitch has made so far, and the first great movie for this summer. 9.5 out of 10 or an A. One of the best I've seen this year so far.
Next we have I Saw the TV Glow, and this movie is basically about a boy in the 90s who has a friendship with a girl obsessed with this weird, obscure TV show, and let's just say things spiral out of control. I'd recommend you go into this movie as blind as possible because it's got some of the trippiest visuals to see in a movie like this, which is helped by Jane Schroenbrand's stellar direction and the stunning cinematography. This is definitely one of the better and more overlooked films of the year so far, which I'll give the sale of cinema.
I can't remember the last time I've ever saw a movie that really felt therapeutic for me. That's what it felt like as I was watching I Saw the TV Glow. Every once in a while, there's a movie that comes around that not only challenges me, but also feels very therapeutic. I Saw the TV Glow is that film. What I really loved about... Now, it's easy... Now, I do understand why some people didn't love this movie, but as it is easy to dismiss the film as being a pretentious mess, but there's a lot more to I Saw the TV Glow than a lot of people give it. Than a lot of people. There's a lot more to say about I Saw the TV Glow that also feels like a food for thought film, and that's what I loved about this movie. Jane Schronenbrand did a wonderful job with the way she crafted this movie. On top of the story feeling well-structured and highly engaging, as well as her directing and screenplay being terrific, the acting was absolutely terrific, especially from Justice Smith, who gives out his best performance yet, and way better than he was in that horrible American Society of Magical Negroes movie he was in earlier this year. What a terrible name, by the way. Hell, even Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit, although he's not in the film that much, it has little to no dialogue, was also fantastic as Frank. The soundtrack is one of the best I've heard in a movie this year so far. The cinematography was absolutely terrific and one of the best of this year so far. The editing was terrific. It's very well paced throughout. The themes of obsession, memory, nostalgia, and identity felt very well executed. The sound design was terrific, and this ending did split a lot of people up. And I can't see why a lot of people didn't like the ending, but I personally found the ending to be I was actually blown away by the ending. And it was mainly because of how powerful and devastating it felt. And this was one of those times where I don't want to spoil anything in the film because it spoils a lot with its themes and metaphors, with more of its themes and metaphors, but this one really connected. But this is one of those times where this movie did connect with me because of how much I was in, like, I felt like I was in Owen's shoes. And it really did make it feel like therapy for me. When I got out of the theater, I was literally in tears. I was literally in tears. I was just so relieved that somebody has made a film that I could actually relate. That really felt like me. And trust me, I was a weird kid back then, so you can only imagine, like, as soon as you see the film, like how I was when I was like a kid and a teenager as well. So yeah, I love this movie. I really, really love this movie. I understand this. Some people will find it overrated, and that's totally all right. That's totally all right. But to me, I saw the TV glow to be devastating, yet mesmerizing and thought-provoking, and without a doubt, it's one of the best films I've seen this entire year so far. Yeah, 10 out of 10, or an A+. What a great film.
Next is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and this movie is supposed to start off a new trilogy featuring a new set of heroes centuries after Caesar's revolution. And it's certainly well acted, and its special effects are just as extraordinary as they've been in the previous three films. And the themes on how Caesar's story is interpreted many generations after the fact, almost like an ancient religion. However, I felt this was super underwhelming. And to explain my frustrations, I'm going to have to go into spoilers. If you haven't seen this movie, mute the video here until I say it's okay. So this movie is 2.5 hours long, but it doesn't even kick in until a half an hour in without spending too much time spending the main ape living in his initial home until it gets attacked by this rogue group of other apes. Then for the next half hour or so, we just see this ape wandering around the forest where he meets this human who can talk in spite of a century-long plague taking away their speech and supposedly wiping them off the earth. Then, after over half the movie, we finally get to meet the main villain, who the movie claims is misusing Jesus' teachings to be this tyrannical ruler. But the problem is, he doesn't even get that developed. Then another 30 minutes of meandering about the villain's hideout later. We get an unimpressive climax where the heroes flood the hideout and the villain dies after 10 minutes of total runtime, which doesn't feel super satisfying because, again, who even was he? Then after the main ape and humans say goodbye, we find out in the last 5 minutes that there actually is an underground human civilization who tries to get in contact with other humans around the world. Then it just ends. Yeah, right when it's about to get interesting, the movie just stops. So honestly, I was just underwhelmed by this movie. While I struggle to say it's not good, as the potential themes and production values are still there. After 3 of the best sci-fi reboots of the past decades, this just pales in comparison. It's possible I might change my mind on this one by the time the sequel comes around, but for now I'm going to have to give it the seal of accuracy. Not bad, but certainly underwhelming.
I actually really like this one. Yes, there are some pacing issues here and there, especially in the second act, and some of the side characters, including most of the human characters, minus May, as well as the villain, did feel underdeveloped. But that's really my only complaints with the film. I thought the story was nicely structured and engaging. I thought the screenplay was solid in terms of its dialogue. Wes Ball did a very good job with the way he directed the movie. The acting was great, especially with Owen T giving out such a terrific performance as Noah. The musical score was very good. The editing was solid. It has terrific cinematography. And the visual effects wow. Like the visual effects in this movie are fantastic. Like how they made it look like they're actually apes. That is brilliant. Again, like the Matt Reeves trilogy. Visual effects are just spectacular. It has an exciting third act and climax, and there are some. And I also really like that the film does have some good humor sprinkled into the midst, and I found the ending to be very satisfying. Hey, buddy, how's it going? Welcome to the podcast. And I know it's been a while. I lost my other phone was broken, so I got a new one. But we'll talk. But we'll talk as soon as possible. Hopefully after the show we'll see. But yeah, overall, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes may not be as strong as Matt Reeves' eighth reboot trilogy, but it's nevertheless fun, entertaining, exhilarating, and a very good start to this new trilogy. I'm really curious to see how I'm actually really curious to see how the next one's going to be now. 8 out of 10 or B+. I really like this movie. And now we get to this movie. Oh, dear Lord, where do I even begin with this one? Where do I even begin? Next movie I'm going to talk about is thank you, Jude. Next movie I'm going to talk about is I was really curious to check this one out because of this actor making his directorial debut. And I'm not kidding when I say this. This is one of the worst directorial debut films I've ever seen in my life. One of the worst attempts at a directorial debut film I've ever seen. It's called Pool Man. Pool Man is a directorial debut of Chris Pine, who also plays Darren Barrowman in the film, an unwavering optimist and native Angelino who spends his days looking after the pool, and fighting to make his hometown a better place to live. This movie was fucking atrocious. Like, I'm not kidding. This movie was absolutely atrocious. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a movie. I don't think I've ever seen a directorial debut movie that really crashed and burned just as quickly. It's like, where do I even begin with how atrocious this was? Like, the story was all over the place. Like, it was such a muddled mess throughout that at times I couldn't even tell what the hell was going on or what in the holy mother of shit he was trying to tell. The screenplay was absolutely atrocious, and that's due to the following things: atrocious dialogue, characters that feel annoying, one-dimensional, and poorly developed, and the tone being such an inconsistent mess where it can't tell if it wants to be a comedy film or a mystery film. And not only was Chris Pine's acting terrible, and not only was his directing terrible, since it was nothing but a muddled mess, but so was his acting. And to make matters worse, Annette Bening, DeWanda Wise, Stephen Tobolowsky, sorry if I mispronounced that, but Clancy Brown, I'm not kidding, Mr. Krabs himself, Clancy Brown, John Orwitz, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Danny DeVito are horribly wasted in this movie since they're not given that much to do in the film. The musical score is absolutely atrocious, as it felt like something you would find in a downloadable music library. The cinematography is atrocious. Especially with some of the jarring close-up shots. Like, whoa! Look at me! I'm doing close-up shots. Am I clever? I am so clever as a filmmaker. Whoa!
Extreme close-up.
Whoa! Like the editing. Like, what the hell was this shit? The editing was a chopped up mess. The pacing was all over the place. The jokes, the jokes, like, I'm not even kidding. The jokes in the film fall very, very flat, especially when most of the jokes go on and on and on and on to the point where, I'm not kidding, you're just begging for the movie. You're just begging for the movie to do this. You're like, I'm not kidding. It went on and on and on and on and on to the point where, well, I'm gonna let the scene play it out for itself.
On with it. Yes, get on with it.
Yeah, you're just yelling for the movie. Just get on with it. And even the mystery aspects felt shoehorned in, especially when it's revealed that it's all part. I'm not making this up, by the way. It's all part of making a movie. What's the point of having putting mystery aspects in your movie if it's all part of making a movie in the first place? What was the point? I literally couldn't find anything redeeming in this movie whatsoever. This is easily one of the worst movies I've seen this entire year. Poolman is a self-indulgent, idiotic, and is a self-indulgent, idiotic, and inconsistent mess that has no idea what it wants to be, and it becomes nothing more than a complete waste of time. And yes, you did kind of spoil this one, but yeah, it gets the big goose egg 0 out of 10 or an F. And sadly, this isn't the only 0. This isn't the last of the 0 out of 10 movies. Oh, thank you, Søren. Please stop asking if it's worse than Madam Web. I mean, I hated this movie, but it's not worse than Madam Web. Please. Thank you. But yeah, Chris Pine, you're very talented too, but never do something like this again. Please. Anyway, let's just move on to If.
Story about a girl hanging out with Ryan Reynolds and a handful of imaginary friends has a ton of potential, but unfortunately, it doesn't really reach it. I will say the cast is solid, and it does have its cute and charming moments here and there, but the main problem I have is that it just couldn't connect with the story. It takes a while to actually get going. There's a ton of plot threads going on at the same time, and by the time it ended, while it did put a little warmth in my heart, it's still not much because I wasn't really that satisfied. So while I still think it's a decent one-time watch, I wouldn't really expect Pixar quality out of a film like this. I'll give it the seal of accuracy.
You know what? I like this movie. Yes, the story did feel a bit uneven at times in the way it was structured. And there were a couple predictable moments in it as well. And I did wish the screenplay could have done more with its characterization and the way it handled its story. And there were a couple pacing issues that the movie does suffer through here and there. But overall, I actually liked If. It was very well directed by John Krasinski. The acting was very good, especially from Kaylee Fleming and Ryan Reynolds, who are both fantastic in this movie. The voice acting from everybody involved, like Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Louis Gossett Jr., Steve Carell, Awkwafina, Emily Blunt, George Clooney, Bradley Cooper, Matt Damon, Bill Hader, Richard Jenkins, Sam Rockwell, and Keegan-Michael Key was very good as well. I also thought the musical score by Michael Giacchino, the cinematography by Steven Spielberg's DP, Janusz Kaminski, was fantastic. The editing was solid. The visual effects on the Ifs were great. Since not once did I find one thing with the Ifs that felt uncanny. There's some good amounts of humor sprinkled into the mix, and it does deliver a good message involving family, loyalty, rediscovering your inner childhood, and caring for others. Yeah, I like this movie. It's not great. It definitely has some issues, but it's definitely uneven and complicated in terms of its story. But If is nevertheless a fun, entertaining, and delightful fantasy comedy that I feel kids will love and the parents will indeed enjoy. 7 out of 10 or B. I liked it. As for the next movie we're about to talk about, you knew it was coming down to this. I have a bone to pick with this particular franchise. The first film wasn't that good. The second film was one of the worst movies I saw from 2018, and yet, what if I were to tell you that this one makes the second film look like The Silence of the Lambs? I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding when I say that. Yep, I'm talking about The Strangers Chapter 1. The Strangers Chapter 1. So, it was meant to be a prequel to The Strangers, like before the first Strangers movie, until it was later revealed that it was actually a relaunch of the Strangers film series and a standalone trilogy. So, I'm not going to be around a bunch with this one. This movie fucking sucked! This is absolutely atrocious. One of the worst horror films I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how you can make a horror film that's worse than Imaginary and Terror, but they did it. They fucking did it. They made a horror film that really put me over the edge with. Really angered me and put me over the edge. Like, oh my God. It's like, I'm not kidding. This movie is everything I cannot stand about the Strangers movie franchise at all. Like, there is nothing redeeming in The Strangers Chapter 1 whatsoever. Not even the solid cinematography on the camera work could save this. The story, an atrocious carbon copy of the original Strangers film. The screenplay, absolutely one of the worst of the year, where they contain awful dialogue and terrible characterization. And I'm going to talk about its characters later on when we get to the cliches. Rennie Harlan's directing, terrible. The acting, it sucks. The acting sucks. The two actors that play the couple in the film are absolutely atrocious. The musical score, atrocious. Oh yeah, and speaking of which, the characters. I'm not even kidding. By the way, the two main couples in the film, I could not stand them at all. Especially with how one is like a douchebag to the other. Like, why? The musical score, atrocious. The cinematography, it could have been the saving factor for the film if it wasn't for the terrible fucking lighting. Like, I'm not kidding. The lighting in this one is so bad, you can't even tell what's going on in some scenes. The editing, a chopped up mess and all over the place. The pacing, a sluggish mess. Hold on. There we go. Any tension or intrigue? Nope. And the cliches? Yup. Cliches. There are a lot of horror cliches in the film. And yes, there are indeed jump scares in the film. Like, not only that, but, oh my god, guys, how many times do we have to say this again and again? Jump scares are not scary. If you're gonna do jump scares in a movie, you need to build tension and suspense. Not do jump scares just for the sake of it. And this movie is exactly that. Jump scares for the sake of being jump scares. And worst of all, speaking of the cliches, this movie has one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to movies like this. Characters making stupid decisions for the sake of the plot. Like, if you thought the characters in the first two Strangers movies were infuriating, oh man, are you in for a wild ride with the characters in the Strangers Chapter 1? Because every one of them make every stupid decision throughout the entire movie, which made it into a frustrating experience. And I'm not kidding when I tell you about this one scene. Spoilers, but I don't care. You shouldn't see the movie anyway. Here we go. There's this one scene where Ryan holds the pinup girl at gunpoint, demanding to know about Maya's whereabouts, and then he says this line. I'm not kidding. He says this line. As he holds the pin girl at gunpoint over the head, he says this line. Here it is. Let me find it. Okay, here we go. Give me one good reason to not fucking kill you right now. Shoot him with the rifle gun!
Or, in layman's terms, shoot them with the fucking rifle gun. It is the
easiest solution in the whole damn world. What the fuck is a rifle?
Yeah, you knew we were gonna bring that up again.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Like, seriously, I have never felt this infuriated at a horror film since The Exorcist Believer last year. That's how bad this is. Owen, to add insult to injury, not only does it end on day to be continued, since we're getting 2 more of these, but it also has a fucking mid-credit scene. And the mid-credit scene they show in the film is one of the worst mid-credit scenes I've ever seen in a movie. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. It starts with Maya waking up in a hospital bed, having survived the ordeal, only for the killer to be sleeping next to her. Give me a second.
You can't be this stupid! You can't!
This is absolutely one of the worst horror films I've ever seen in my life. I know how you feel, dude. I know how you feel, but that's what literally happened. Yeah. Overall, The Strangers Chapter 1 isn't just the worst of the Strangers movies so far. It's also one of the most idiotic horror films I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how you can make a horror film worse than like a Jeff Wadlow horror film, Imaginary, or a Spencer Cohen film, Terra. But they did it. They fucking did it. They made a horror film worse than those films. Congratulations, Rennie Harlan. Congratulations. Yeah, the Big Old Goose Egg, 0 out of 10, or an F. Boo!
You want to know the funniest part about all this?
What?
The next 2 movies aren't even better.
Oh,
First
no!
off, yep, back to black.
Oh my god.
Now, a movie about Amy Winehouse has its potential of emotional storytelling and Oscar hopes. However, my hopes were immediately drained when it came to 3 particular works. Sam Taylor Johnson.
The same jackass that brought us, are you ready for this? 50 Shades of Grey.
Out of all the directors to direct an Amy movie, why in the fuck would you choose the director of 50 Shades of Grey? You know she's gonna fuck it up, and surprise, surprise, she did just that. I will say that the actors do their best with it, what they're given. Marissa Bella is at least trying to pull off Amy, but that's pretty much it. This movie forgoes the plethora of potential in Winehouse's story, like they're skimming through a Wikipedia page, and then highlighted the negative aspects about it for a last-minute essay in school. It also goes for all the biopic cliches, drug and alcohol abuse, a bland spiraling romance, avoidance of paparazzi. I wouldn't mind so much, except they don't even tell anything about these moments. Things just happen and we don't learn anything. And as a result, it just makes Amy Winehouse look like an irredeemable bastard. Trust me, if she was alive to see this movie, she would have fucking curb-stomped the filmmakers of this disgrace. And it made me want to apologize for giving the Bob Marley biopic a hard time, because at least that movie tried to show its life as respectfully as possible. This movie doesn't even make an attempt. Thus, it's safe to say that this is the Patch Adams of music biopics, in terms of how much they misrepresent the real-life person in favor of cliches and cheap emotion. This movie gets an absolute seal disapproval. And trust me, John Wick, this was close to being the Silver Age, but the performances pretty much saved it. But that's not saying much. It still sucks monkey fuck and sucks diarrhea up your fucking asshole.
You want me to say it? You want me to say it?
Go ahead.
Okay. But that's not saying much. It still sucks monkey fuck and pukes diarrhea up your fucking asshole. I'll get the positives out of the way first. Marissa Abella gives out a very good performance as Amy Winehouse. And Jack O'Connell and Eddie Marsan also give out some good performances as well. And it does have a good soundtrack and very good cinematography. But that's it. Everything else fucking sucked. Aside from the story being all over the place and a terrible screenplay, and mainly in terms of its dialogue, the directing was absolutely atrocious. Like, it was so all over the place, especially with the way she was trying to go in the direction with the story. Like, what the fuck? What the actual fuck? All the other actors, including poor Leslie Manville, are horribly wasted since they're not given that much to do in the film. The editing was a scrambled mess of choppy chaos. It has sluggish pacing. The concert scenes were poorly done. It has cliches it does throw in a lot of cliches, including the one Søren just explaining alcohol, paparazzi, you name it. Themes of artistry and addiction felt poorly executed, and the ending is nothing more than an abysmal slap in the face. Yeah, overall, Back in Black is an inconsistent, soulless, and exploited biopic on Amy Winehouse that says nothing about her life and the things she accomplished, and it's nothing more than a complete waste of time. And worst of all, it makes it one of the worst biopics I've ever seen in my life. If you wanted to make a biopic on Amy Winehouse, fine. If you wanted to make a movie that shows the dangers of drug and alcohol addiction, fine. But do it as a fucking adult and treat those things in a matured, well-detailed, and respectful manner. Not this childish, poorly written, non-factual, and exploited bullshit. 2 out of 10, or a D. One of the worst movies I've seen this year so far.
And speaking of one of the worst movies of the year, the Garfield movie. And I'm not going to be around the bush. This one was terrible.
Yeah, really.
Having 2 live-action movies that failed to impress was bad enough, but seeing the director of Cats Don't Dance and Emperor's New Groove stoop this low in an animated film that go...
You know what? Wait a moment. Wait a moment. Before you say anything else, watch the documentary film Amy. It is a way better movie that does a fantastic job exploring on Amy Winehouse than this piece of shit.
Yeah, as I was saying. But seeing the director of Cats Don't Dance and Emperor's New Groove stoop this low in an animated film that forgoes everything that made Garfield such an icon is just sad. First off, the cast. None of the actors sound authentic to their characters. Chris Pratt's just playing Chris Pratt. Sam Jackson's just playing Sam Jackson. Ving Rhames is just Ving Rhames. Hannah Watson's phoning it in as a villain. Liz and Norma are barely in this movie. The animation... The only actor that I felt gave out a decent performance is Harvey Guillén as Odie. I really like the barking noises he provided for Odie. But that's the only actor I felt gave out a genuinely good performance. The animation looks like it could pass as great in the 2000s, but it looks like cheap shit in 2024. The pacing is such a drag, as scenes just drag out for the sake of feature length. The pop culture references are obnoxious as all hell, like the Mission Impossible and Top Gun things, as well as
my God! Especially this one scene where Garfield, especially this one scene where they think in the third act where they say, yes, if you're wondering, I do my own stunts. Me and Tom Cruise. Get it? Because because it's trying to be an action heist movie, and they're referencing Tom Cruise from the Mission Impossible movies. Do you get it, you stupid fucking audience?
And yes, John Wick, I forgot to mention that. Can I mention the product placement is not only bad,
God,
it's A Crazy Night bad. Like from Olive Garden to fucking Cat Flex. There's only one.
Not to mention as well, Walmart and FedEx.
Oh. There's only one good scene that I can point in this entire movie, and that's the flashback with Garfield as a kid. But
the only thing.
But even then, it was better off as his own short film, and it's clear that they only made this movie just to have that one good scene. Other than that, why does this movie?
Butchered it. They butchered it by making us feel bad for. Oh my god! They butchered that scene just to make us feel bad for Vic.
Other than that,
fuck you.
Why does this movie exist? Why did all these talented people say yes to this?
And why the fuck did it be Furiosa or Mad Max Saga at the box office?
How is it slightly better than the first live-action Garfield, but significantly worse than its mediocre sequel?
What about the first live-action Garfield movie? At least Bill Murray actually fit the voice and tone of Garfield very well, and at least they were trying to be faithful to the comics.
Why was there no?
Like they didn't even try.
Why was there no effort put into this? And as Nick pointed out, why did this outgrow Furiosa? I don't know, and I don't care. Point is, this was hot trash from start to finish, and it's undoubtedly one of the worst animated movies of the decade. I'm giving this piece of shit a seal disapproval.
2 out of 10. Only because of the solid animation and Harvey Guillian's like solid vocal performance as Odie, but otherwise, fuck this movie. Skip it.
I gotta calm down for a bit. Ooh.
I know, Søren. I'm just as angry as you.
Next, we're gonna talk about Furiosa Mad Max Saga.
Thank you.
And after the high
let's just end this on a high note with that.
And after the high standards set by Fury Road, it's safe to say George Miller had a lot to live up to when making a follow-up. And while this isn't nearly the masterpiece I was hoping for, it's still a hell of a time. Miller's vision still shines through the stellar production value, cinematography, and practical action set pieces, even if the CGI can be noticeable at times. All the actors give it their all, especially Anya Taylor-Joy and the young actress who plays her younger counterpart, as well as Chris Hemsworth, who's just having a ball as the main villain. The sound design and music are all stellar, and it does everything a prequel should. Explore what made Furiosa what she is, and while also being solid in its ties to Fury Road. Despite some slow moments, as well as some scene transitions that are a bit rushed, I still had a ball watching this movie. It's sad to see this bomb at the box office, because this is the kind of movie that someone needs right now. A well-acted, well-directed, and well-written ride to Valhalla and back, and I'll give it the enthusiastic seal disapproval.
You mean seal of approval?
Yes, seal of approval.
Okay. This is one of the best prequels I've ever seen in my life. This is one of the best prequels I've ever seen. I mean, sure. It's not as masterful as its successor, Mad Max Fury Road, but again, it has the same effect as I felt when watching this. The only thing I originally was going to give this a 10 out of 10, but then I realized there was only one slight issue I have with the film. There were a couple visual effects that I did notice that did look noticeable at times, but that's it. There were a couple of CGI visual effects that did look noticeable, but that's really it. Noticeably messy, I meant. But that's really it. The story felt well structured. The writing was terrific, especially in terms of its dialogue and characterization. George Miller's directing was fantastic. The acting was terrific. Anya Taylor-Joy gives out one of her best performances yet as the titular character, and Chris Hemsworth was fantastic as the villain. The score was outstanding. The cinematography was terrific and one of the very best I've seen in a film in 2024 so far. Terrific editing, excellent pacing, and of course, the action sequences are out of this world. And on top of, like, oh my God, the action sequences were outstanding. The amount of stunts they used for this, the fact it took over like this many amounts of stuff, this huge amount of stunts for these sequences, it still blows my mind. And the ending brilliantly ties together with Fury Road brilliantly. Yeah. Overall, Furiosa: A Mad Max Saga is one of the best movies I've seen this year so far. It's captivating, exhilarating, and above all, one of the best prequels I've ever seen. A very enthusiastic 9.5 out of 10 or an A. I love this movie.
Now, before we end this whole thing, let's just get the picks and dogs of the show out of the way. Now, for my pick of the show, I'm going to go with not one, but two movies from 2019 that kind of flew under the radar so much that I didn't even see them to make my best of the year list I did before on this podcast a couple of years back. That being two films of similar caliber, being Todd Haynes' Dark Waters and Clint Eastwood's Richard Jewell. These two movies...
I love those films.
These two movies, one being Mark Ruffalo and his decades-long quest for justice when a major corporation has been purposely contaminating the river, which leads to the death of numerous animals, and the other being by Paul Walter Hauser, getting anxious about a false conviction involving a recent bombing. Each of that deal respective true stories and are each engaging thanks to brilliant screenplays, terrific direction, and especially the performances. In Richard Jewell's case, who truly steals the show is Sam Rockwell, playing probably the best damn lawyer one can ask for. It's not hard to see why this guy ignored at that year's Oscars outside Kathy Bates for Richard Jewell, as it was pretty static in terms of Oscar movies, but these movies are more than worth your time. Now, as for my dog of the show, ever since I saw the trailer for Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis, I've been kind of on a kick on watching some of his movies recently. Unfortunately, I had to come across his worst movie, and surprise, surprise, it's not Jack. In fact, I think that movie is pretty underrated. Rather, it's his boring as hell experimental fantasy entitled Youth Without Youth.
Oh my God, that film.
Now, the concept has its potential, depicting Tim Roth, who inexplicably becomes decades younger after getting struck by lightning, thus garnering the attention of Nazis wanting to exploit his predicament, and Alexandra Maria Lara, who's had a similar experience and thus has a relationship with him. And it's well acted by his cast members, including Bruno Gansen.
Hey, Søren, that's also my dog in the show, too.
And including Bruno Gansen, like the fifth movie that involved Nazis in some way, first Downfall, then The Reader, then to some extent The House That Jack Built, then A Hidden Life. Am I the only one to think he's been kind of typecasted? Anyways, it does have its decent production values and music as well. However, it's a total mess. Half the time, it seems like it doesn't know whether it wants to be a fantasy film, a romance, a period piece, a drama film, or nothing. Or anything. That end is incredibly boring. Nothing happens, and I had to skip around and look up the Wikipedia articles so I wouldn't go insane. I get that Coppola wanted to do something different, but it's clear that this film is better suited for someone like David Lynch or Spike Jonze or Jonathan Glazer or Terry Gilliam. I only recommend this to hardcore Coppola fans for those wanting to complete his filmography. Otherwise, I'd say skip this one at all costs.
Yeah. Oh, no, wait, I remembered. Youth Without You is actually my runner-up as my dog. My dog of the show is, of course, as you guys could imagine, The Strangers Chapter 1. Honestly, I already explained why this movie sucks ass so much, so I really don't need to explain it. further. My pick, though, my pick at the show, however, is a great film from 1990, directed by the Coen brothers, Miller's Crossing.
I still need to see that movie. It's on my watch list.
It's one of the best gangster pictures I've ever seen. The acting is spectacular, especially from Marcia Gay Harden, Gabriel Byrne, John Turturro, and Albert Finney. The production values and costume design was fantastic. It's very well edited, very well directed, very well written. The story felt highly engaging, and above all, this is one of the best gangster pictures I've ever seen in my life. If you're a big fan of these like mob gangster movies, check this one out. I mean, aside from Goodfellas, if it wasn't for Goodfellas, this would have been the best gangster picture of 1990. Yeah. But, yeah, check it out. Check out Miller's Crossing. And skip Youth Without Youth and The Strangers Chapter 1.
Well, that's it for this podcast. Stay tuned in a couple of weeks as Nick and I go over such films as Bad Boys Where I Die, Inside Out 2, Kinds of Kindness, and Despicable Me 4.
We'll get to that, Søren. We will get to that next time on this podcast. Thank you guys very much for watching tonight's podcast. It's been a lot of fun doing this. We'll see you in early August for the for episode 47 of the FilmBrony podcast, and we'll also introduce and we'll also talk about the worst and best movies that both Soren and I saw in the first 6 months of this year so far. So stay tuned for that, guys. All right, well, in the meantime, thank you guys very much for watching tonight's podcast. Be sure to subscribe to Soren Saunders on his YouTube channel. The link is in the description below. Give him the love he absolutely deserved. He is a great person to talk to and a wonderful creator. And guys, thanks for also sticking around with us thanks for sticking around with us for another episode as well as another year of this. It's just with all the moving and work I've been doing, it's just been hard to keep up. But I appreciate you guys. I really do appreciate you guys for sticking around. It really means a lot. All right, well, until we meet again in early August for episode 47, you all have a great night and see you later.